Yeah, I'm ready when you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 17 of The Complete Game with Kurt and Garrick Schilling. What's up, G?
What's going on, everybody?
Gonna jump right into it. We've been talking a lot around and about the Rockies and the season they're in the midst of, the challenges of all those things. And I ran across something I found to be incredibly interesting, G. So there's obviously everybody's an expert when it comes to prospects. And we've talked about how much more of a challenge baseball and hockey are to determine prospects and future and potential. I mentioned Chase Hollander, their number one prospect, who's in the big leagues right now pitching. Big Hall of Fame caliber arm, but clearly, and through no fault of his own, he's not ready to pitch in the big leagues by any stretch. There's so much work and polish to be done. Not again, not his fault, but uh, I look at the situation in Colorado and I think, what you don't want to do right now is compound your mistakes. And I have a feeling, I'm very comfortable in saying that the mistakes are being compounded in this sense. They're starting a kid named Carson Palmquist tonight, who's one of their top prospects. Let me back up, actually. So there's a website, a sports website, and on this website, they rank the Rockies prospects, and he's ranked number one. And it starts out with this saying, what to know. Hollander is in the big leagues and pitching well. No, he's not. Despite losing some lift to his fastball, I have no idea what that means. Because he's throwing almost two ticks harder, and apparently ticks are new age language for miles per hour. Um, just a quick two sentence or a quick sentence and a half. That's not true. He's not pitching well. He gave up 17 runs over three starts, and again, through no fault of his own, he's not ready to pitch in the big leagues, and he should be held to nothing on this. But you know, I think we want to show the fans there's a potential in the future, and I think what this is going to do is be a dead end for this kid because you can only stay so long positive. And I saw some comments after his last start. He was like, "Yeah, I need to slow down," and he's going to have his good starts because when you don't know a young pitcher and he has plus stuff, and he has plus stuff, he's an upper 90s kid. This is a max effort, no finish guy. He's leaving velocity in the gas tank and an enormous amount of command. And I wanted to use the whiteboard real quick to explain this. So this is my strike zone, right? This is my strike zone as a pitcher. These are the four quadrants you work your fastball in, and there's a little bit of each side here you work your fastball in. Now, in the big leagues, Jacob deGrom is a great example. Mid to upper 90s guy, power stuff. When Jacob deGrom wants to work down and away to a righty, 80% of the time he's going to hit his spot or make a good miss. And a good miss is always to the side of the plate you're throwing on. So when Jacob deGrom makes this pitch, he's going to make it here or here or here or here or here. There's an 80% chance, if not better, that the fastball down the way is going to be in there. If you watch Dollander and highlights, you'll see catcher sets up here, his fastball goes up here. He gets a swing and a miss for strike three, but in no way is that useful because that doesn't happen a lot, and it will happen less and less. There's literally less than a 50% chance when he throws the ball here that it's going to be inside this box. So it's not going to be a use. It's going to be up here. It's going to be here. It's going to be out here. It's going to be over here, and that is what we talk about with control.
And it's you mentioned hockey in the same breath as baseball because they're the two leagues that not only take development so seriously, but they have the most levels to have you
Right.
develop through.
Right.
It's also that mentality not being massaged out of these kids from the time they're in high school because what you're describing, I struck that kid out. That's
Right.
a good inning for
Right.
me. But there's a game within the game that you're trying to get through to people on this podcast that it seems like not a big deal when it's a punch out in the scorecard,
Here's the
but it's a
example.
missed spot, which is huge.
I'm in Greensboro in 1987, and we're terrible. We're the worst team in the minor leagues, and I ended up going 8-15 that year. But I ended up leading the league in strikeouts. I had 185 innings, like 189 punchouts. Anyway, I find out that there's a major league scout at the game in Greensboro, and I throw like 7 innings, punch out 12, two hits, one run, and I'm shower real quick because I want to run out there and hear what this guy has to say. And I'll never forget the conversation. I was like, "Well, what'd you think?" He goes, I said, "About the outing." He goes, "Well, I saw you throw the ball really hard, and I saw a lot of guys who will never make it to the big league swing at pitches they can't hit." And I was like, the air out of my tire, totally deflated. He's like, "You've got to learn how to command that." because as your next level in Double A, they're not going to chase those pitches. They'll chase them less. In the big Triple A, they'll chase them less. In the big leagues, they'll chase them once. They won't chase them. And so, basically, the way of saying I don't care what the stat line looks like. You just were throwing the ball as hard as you could. You weren't pitching. And I'm watching these kids, and again, through no fault of their own, this stuff is all stuff they should have been taught and learned and had in their toolbox far before they got to the big leagues. And the reason I mention this is because I think they're compounding their mistakes. Carson Palmquist, the Rockies' #9 prospect, is starting in Arizona tonight. And here's the thing: I don't care how good of an outing he has if he has a good one. He is not set up for sustained success in the big leagues. In last year, he threw well in his minor league career. He's thrown 246 innings, which is literally twice as many as Hollander. He's walked 117 hitters, which is a walk rate of 4.3 per nine in the minor leagues. That's not going to go down as you go up if you're not improving your mechanics. And by the way, those 246 innings, I would tell you that those 246 innings probably came in about 40 starts in the minor leagues for me. Maybe, not even. That's 53 starts. So less than 5 innings a start, which is what we know they're doing in the minor leagues, right? No shock. 324 punch outs in 246 innings and 117 walks. What is it? Like almost a 3-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio in the minor leagues. That's not going to get better if you're the same pitcher. Watching video of him, there's nothing different than him. And again, I love this kid. Big arm, left-hander. He's a side thrower. We talked about the clock 12. He's more of a Randy Johnson down here, which if you're not a plus upper 90s guy with a sharp breaking ball, right-handers in the big leagues are going to tee off on you, because hitters see the ball so much better down out here than they do when it's coming from at the top. But last year, in 82 innings in AAA, he walked 33 guys. Not good. Goes to AAA and walks 27 in 35 innings. He's not ready for the big leagues. And he, by the way, had a 5.86 ERA in a ballpark that mirrors Coors Field or Colorado in a lot of ways. In Albuquerque, the ball travels there. Point being, no matter what he does this year, he's in an environment that it's not a teachable environment. When you're running out there and when I would always look at it, and I never pitch there, but I would always look at it like this. When I'm in Colorado, every road start, I have to have a monster outing, because I could have great stuff in my next home start and still give up 14 hits in 6 innings. And so there's almost a kind of a pressure that doesn't exist elsewhere that you have to endure. But like we said, it is what it is. This screams for a complete rebuild of the pitching program from the day you draft them to the day they get to the big leagues, and understanding, you have to look at. I think you have to look at Colorado from a very different perspective than Tampa. You have 6 years of control of players. I can't imagine a scenario where a young pitcher that you have after 6 years of pitching in Colorado and becoming a free agent is going to say, "Yeah, I can't wait to sign back here." It's not going to happen. So you recognize that with these kids early, and you say, okay, we're going to have him for 6 years. That 5th year, if he's becoming what he's become, back up. The scary part of this, if they get somebody in to fix the pitching, these 2 kids are going to become what you kind of want them to become right around the time they're getting ready to leave. And that sucks. But again, this kid pitching tonight, you're going to see a big league arm, but that doesn't make a big league pitcher. And I don't believe either one of these kids are young men. They're not kids, but they're young in the baseball sense, and they're not ready to pitch in the big leagues.
And good luck to him. That game just started right now in Arizona. So
yeah.
I wanted to talk because I know you and I were talking about Aaron Nola.
Yeah.
Similar kind of story with a little bit more time to develop. Mick Abel, AAA kid, getting called up in place of Aaron Nola. 8 starts last year in the minors, 5-2 with a 2.72 ERA. Had walk issues, command issues, similar story, but from the right arm. He was 6.5 walks per 9 in 2024, and they've cut that number in half basically to 3.7. They think he's ready to go.
Yeah.
And you looked at him pitch a little bit.
Yeah. No, a thrower. And again, I'm not. That doesn't mean you can make these kids into successful Cy Young contending big league pitchers, but you have to have the right coaching. And let's back up. Aaron Nola, and I say this very hesitantly. I don't mean it personally. I don't think he's hurt physically. I think he needs a break. And
Reset.
this is the change in the injured list is big for things like this because you can sit for 10 days and just get away. And that's sometimes for some guys it takes that. This is something's not right. And I think looking at his stuff looks fine. I mean, from a stuff perspective, velocity, breaking ball, he's just making a ton of mistakes. And when you're making mistakes and no one's missing, it compounds it and makes it look worse than it is. He's struggling horribly.
Yeah, 1-7 with a 6.16 ERA. I mean, he's been their horse,
Right.
Other than Zach Wheeler, who
Yep.
has had problems at times,
and Nola was one of the guys that brought Wheeler there, right? You come there, and I'm a huge fan of Aaron. I think he's a frontline starter, and all the things go with that. He's in a rough patch, and this is when you need that pitching coach like Johnny Padres, who could take you to the bullpen and walk out of the bullpen feeling like you could conquer the world. And there's because when you're struggling like that, you can't be positive with yourself. No matter you can say I think I feel, but you're in many ways you're lying to yourself from the perspective of it'll get better. I just need to make this. No, there's a lot of things that need to change. But first and foremost, if mentally you're not there, you're not gonna.
well, the Phillies manager, I grabbed this quote just to see if you thought anything of it. We thought he could pitch through it. He thought he could pitch through it, but it's not getting out. So before it turns into an elbow or a quad or a shoulder, it's best we just shut him down right now. Do you buy into that, or do you think it's
to some degree? I'm watching him. It doesn't look different.
That's what I was going to say.
Right.
He
No,
doesn't.
I'm
He
not.
doesn't look like
Doesn't
he's
mean it's
doing
not.
anything different.
Doesn't
in
mean it's
particular.
not. But this is a mental blow, I think, more than anything.
By the way, I am also podcasting a little sick. Not to put myself on Aaron Nola or Michael Jordan flu game or Kurt Schilling bloody, but I am also playing through injury, so I know what it's like. You can figure.
Oh my God. So what are you dealing with?
I know I'm just sick. I was just gonna preface that for if people are listening and
got a
wondering why I
cold,
sound a
little
little
cough.
off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, nowadays in certain sports, that is a 15-day IL.
Right.
So I just wanted
Well,
that.
you're a gamer.
I wanted people to know that
Right.
take that into consideration.
Right. Okay. You're a gamer.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever. But getting back to this Abel kid, I watched 5 pitches. He's a thrower. And he's a guy whose fastball command might get a little better, will never be consistently good with the mechanics he has right now. And I know it sounds like a broken record, but this is a byproduct of the drive line pitching. This is a byproduct of light the gun up. Don't care where the ball goes, light the gun up. And when you don't care where the ball goes, in A ball, this is a strikeout, this is a strikeout, this is a strikeout. This is the guy, oh yeah, I saw you pitch, you struck out 12 and you only gave up 2 hits. But these guys that swing at pitches, they won't swing out in the big leagues. And it screams for a revamp of how pitchers are being taught. They're not getting enough innings in the minor leagues, not throwing enough pitches. Here's the other thing, and this is the important thing I wanted to make at the end of this show. Not all pitches are created equal. Pitch count is a monstrous.
Pitches or pitchers?
Pitches.
Okay.
Right? Pitch count, I don't know why 100's the number, right? It just seems like a round number. And 15 pitches an inning over 9 innings is 135 pitches, right? And 15 pitches is kind of the metric you use. If you're under that for a count, it's good, whatever. Now it's times around the order for the sabermetric guys. Don't want my guys facing hitters 3 times. It costs the Rays a World Series and all things go with that and yada, yada, yada. But if I were to tell you, and I keep going back to that A-Rod video, those 3 pitches were everything I had. If you look at the delivery, there's not a lot of difference between that delivery and my other delivery other than my effort level, but it's all inside of a delivery that has finish. These kids are max effort guys. And so what happened, there's a thing called going to the well. And going to the well as a pitcher means I'm given every pitch of this at bat is everything I have. And I had 3 was my number. I could go to the well 3 times in a game. If I had to go to the well the 3rd time before the 9th inning, I wasn't finishing. Right? And if I had to go to the well in the 1st inning, which was rare, but it happened, that was bad. Right? So, and you go to the well with runners in scoring position and less than 2 outs, or the middle of the lineup up with a runner on 3rd. The different times when I need a strikeout or I need a very poorly hit ball. I'm max efforting the ball, and the key is to be able to max effort inside of my mechanics. These kids don't have those mechanics. And keep saying kids, they're kids to me. I'm 58. They don't have those. Their mechanics are so for example, let me give you an example. When I was throwing the ball well, I was 94 to 95, and I was command to the corners. DeGrom, when he's throwing the ball well, let's just say I was 94 to 95, and I was hitting my spots. In a two-strike pitch, when I wanted to reach back and go to the well for a two-strike pitch, I would go from 94, 95 to 97, 98. When Chase Hollander goes to the well, he goes from 97 to maybe 96 to maybe 98 to maybe 94 because nothing changes. The effort's always the same.
So I have a question off of that, I guess. Is it so say for like you, for example, you hit 100 a few times in your career, right? Do you think that you could have more consistently set at a high velocity at the cost of these things you're talking about? Like,
Unequivocally.
yeah, so that's
No, no.
also I think a big part of the philosophy shift in
Right.
pitching as a whole, as
Right.
you've been talking
The
about.
velocity thing.
Yeah.
And here's the thing.
And that's what they do that in high school to
Yep.
get on the
Yep.
scouting list, and then they get on the scouting list, and that's how they stay in these, and they don't get taught anything
Nope.
through
Nope.
4 or 5 rungs of
it's-
professional baseball.
Remember when we had the conversation about teams drafting players sight unseen?
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
this dude's average velocity is 94 and his spin rate on his fastball is 1800
signed, sealed, delivered without seeing him.
without ever seeing him.
That's insane to me. I still don't really believe that.
Yeah,
Like
and-
that's how different it was
Right.
growing up around it that
Right.
I'm like, that cannot be possible.
Right. And I keep saying this is not just and this is I think part of this is me sounding like I know more than everybody else. And I'm not trying to say it like that, but the way pitching has gone and where it's gone is people that don't understand true pitching in the big leagues have gotten a hold of the youth of today. And the things that they are emphasizing for these kids are not the things that matter in the big leagues. Because here's how I would see it. If I got my hands on Chase Hollander, his average velocity wouldn't change. It might go up a tick or two, but it wouldn't change. But his command of the strike zone would go from, I would tell you right now, command is, to me, command is, I'm throwing a pitch here and I miss within 6 inches. That's command. I would tell you that he throws with fastball command probably less than 50% of the time. And in the big leagues, to be a successful guy like a Maddox or a command guy like a DeGrom, you have to do it 75 to 85% of the time.
At least.
At least.
And that's like as your baseline, like you go above that if you're one of those guys you're talking
Right.
about, Maddox, a Lincecum, one of those freak shows. You have to be consistently above that, but that has to be your baseline for command and consistency if you're going to be one of the top 5 to 10 pitchers.
Here's the thing.
At any point, at any level.
Maddox pitching today would have the same numbers, probably better numbers than he had back then.
Probably better because of how ridiculously high everyone else is. Seeing him versus seeing some guys today would be like.
It's the fact that swinging and missing has been made okay.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
Right.
The home run strikeout mentality is much
I think
more.
RJ would strike out 400 some guys.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at that saying to myself, you show me Kyle Schwarber with 215 strikeouts, he's not going to make contact. And not because
who by the way, is on a borderline MVP campaign right now because of that style of baseball we're playing.
But if you show me those holes in June, he might get me. In September, he has no chance because I can hit those holes. And, when I talk about that command hitting that 6-inch box 80% of the time, when you miss that 20%, you miss over here. You miss up here. You don't miss over here. How many times, watch when you're watching a game, watch how many times the catcher will sit here and he'll end up catching the ball like this or like this. Anytime you see the elbow, the catcher's elbow or the front side of the elbow,
bad.
That's a bad pitch. It's literally, you get people out. And these boxes, right? We talked about this. These boxes in the strike zone, this is what it looks like. I'm going to tell you at 92 or 93. These boxes, as you go up the velocity scale, get bigger. That's 95. That's 98, right? That's Paul Skeens. As you go 93 to 89, they get smaller. But they're all in this area, and I've got to throw the ball in this area, You don't make a living here. Nobody does. However, when I'm throwing the ball
Except Aaron Judge.
right, right. As a pitcher, I can get away with this pitch when I'm dotting this one. I can get away with this pitch
Yeah,
when I'm
and
done.
you'll see those watching a game. You'll see a guy like, oh my God, he was about to
Right,
unload, and it's just a fraction of a
right,
centimeter of a miss,
right.
but it is so crucial in everyday
And
baseball.
if you want it, as fans, if you want to understand how hard it is to hit, you get to the ballpark early, watch batting practice. Watch how many guys pop up a 65-mile-an-hour batting practice fastball in the cage. It's hard to do, but stuff allows the strike zone to expand. Command of the stuff moves you from where Chase Hollander is to Chase Hollander contending for the Cy Young Award every year. And this kid's got an arm. He's got an arm that could have a plaque in Cooperstown at the end of his career. Same thing with Palmquist. Big arm, great stuff, but in many ways a fastball thrower. His breaking ball, I like his delivery a lot better with his breaking ball because he's got a finish to it, and it's more of a sweeper left-handed. But I'm okay with that because he's got the velocity to run the ball in. But that's a great example. So when Carson Palmquist is pitching, he throws if this is the righty, he's letting the ball go from out here, which gives righties a big advantage against lefties that drop down and throw from the side. However, and this is where RJ lived, and RJ did it differently than everybody else. But the fact of the matter was, RJ would live out here at 97, and he would live in here. The thing about it was when he went to here, he didn't miss, right? When he made this pitch at 97, it was right here. It wasn't here or here or here because he was throwing hard. When he was young, it was, and look at his numbers. But once he gained fastball command, everything changed. And, I'm looking at the draft. And I think that's what we're going to do the next show or two is talk in depth about the top prospects coming into the draft from a pitching perspective, because I'm looking at the kids there's a couple kids that are going to go probably in the top two or three who, if you don't have developmental coaching as pitching, you're wasting your pick. They're big arms, but they're throwers. There's one kid who I'm in love with, who throws from the left side, and he's a high schooler, which you hear people talk about the risk in high school pitching. The risk in high school pitching isn't the risk in the pitcher; it's the risk in the organization. These organizations are bringing these kids along wrong, and the thing I look at is a high school pitcher has more potential to grow and be bigger than a college kid. And I've gotten him before his getting taxed out at Vanderbilt or Tennessee, where they're maxing his innings load and all the things that go with that. Plus, I feel like if you set the organization up right, you're far better served to spend 3 years in my minor league system with my coaches and my plan than you are at any college. Because I can teach you how to win within the framework of winning not being the only thing that matters. Right? You want your kids to win coming up in the minor leagues, but more importantly, you want them to be better pitchers the end of the year. Here's what I will leave you with this two things as we think about and we continue to talk about Colorado. You don't promote guys in the minor leagues until they master the level they're at. I went from rookie ball to A ball to Lloyd to double A to triple A to the big leagues. And each step, I kind of mastered the level I was at. I was really good at the level I was at. So naturally, I'm going to double A because that's where you go after you master A ball. And in double A, I had a good year, went to triple A, same thing. I mastered and then eventually mastered triple A to get to big leagues. That's happening almost in none of these cases. They can't even master the minor leagues much alone because they're not getting the innings. And I argue the innings you spend on the downside in the minor leagues, you make up for in the big leagues. Remember, especially if you're in Colorado, you got 6 years of control. At the end of that 6 years, they're walking. You're not re-signing anybody. And that's just so again, it is what it is. The draft's coming up. They've got 4 picks in the top 100. Tampa has 6. The Orioles have 6 or 7 because Tampa and the Orioles don't outbid people for free agents. They have really stud young players. When they walk, you get compensation picks, and they don't miss in the draft. And and again, this is not personal, but Colorado. But the fact of the matter is, you've got a 25-man roster built up of players. You have to look at yourself and go, how is this the end result? And it's not anyone. I mean, it always falls on the GM because he ends up making the final decisions. But the ladder of people below him making decisions and advising him are making mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. And they're not fixing their mistakes by coaching these guys up. Oh, we're going to draft this kid. He's raw. However, look at our single A pitching coach. This is a guy who understands how to turn a young guy around. These guys are showing up in the big leagues the same guys they were when you drafted them. Somebody's got to pay for that. And unfortunately, what was it? The old Cardinals coach, Dennis Green. We are what our record says we are. That, again, accept it. It is what it is. You're 7-36, and you need to fix what's broken. And it's not going to be fixed tomorrow, but there's a long-term solution here, but it starts with rebuilding all of the foundational principles that you've been drafting and putting players together on. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. We'll go into it. We'll talk. I'll watch video. We'll talk about the draft and how, in my opinion, we'll use Colorado, how I think Colorado should approach the draft. And I'll give that on the next show. So
Sounds
it's
good.
Friday. We'll see you guys on Sunday.
Hang on, hang on.
Anything happens, we're going to do our trivia here. I am 2 for 2.
Two for two.
2 for 2. I got one on the first guess and one on the fourth.
Yep.
So this is a former teammate of mine that I played with. 5 clues. The first clue is the hardest. The fifth clue is the easiest. So I got the first one, Craig Counsell, on the first clue, and I got Mike Lieberthal on the fourth clue.
All right, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the most vague clue, the hardest clue for 10 points. I was one of Tom Brady's baseball heroes growing up.
Oh my God. I played with him.
Yep, that's the point of guess your teammate.
Yeah, I played with him. One of Tom Brady's baseball heroes growing up.
Any guess?
Uh, I'm gonna say, since Tom grew up in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, Cal Ripken.
Nope. All right, moving on. Another 14-year career. I played for 6 different teams across the NL and AL. 14 years, just like Mike Lieberthal, played for 6 different teams across the American and National League. Any guesses?
Luis Gonzalez.
Nope. I was a first round pick, and I'm a career 6 for 8 off of you with 0 strikeouts.
Son of a bitch.
I knew that one would just bother you, even
That
if.
bothers me a lot.
Yeah. For anyone that can't do quick math, that's a
Uh,
750 hitter.
uh, oh my God. 6 for 8 off me. Somebody, and that's the problem is I remember, I know I've looked at this and thought about, oh, this guy owned me. Uh,
There's so many things that are going through my mind that I just have to bite my tongue because I'm like, that'll give it away. That'll give it away.
6 for 8 off me.
6 for 8.
Not Gary Bennett.
Nope. My only playoff appearance came against the Dodgers in the NLCS in 1988 in my rookie campaign with the Mets.
Hang on.
See, the hints are not exactly dead giveaways, but
6
that
for
gives
8
you
off me.
that
So it
gives you a
can't be
lot of
Dwight Gooden.
context. Gives you a lot of context.
Can't be Dwight Gooden.
My only playoff appearance came against the Dodgers in my rookie campaign in 1988 as a member of the New York Mets.
Greg Jeffries?
Greg Jeffries.
Son of a bitch. Yep. As soon as I thought of the name, I thought, okay.
You said it last week. I think you guessed
Yeah.
him for one of them. So I was like, I'll try and see if it's
Yep.
like
That was good.
the last clue. We played together from 1995 to 98
Yep.
when I was acquired by the Anaheim Angels for a
Great
player to be
teammate.
named later in cash.
Great
Yeah,
teammate.
I was going to
Tom
say,
Brady was a Jeffries guy.
so That fun fact, Greg Jeffries, and I have the clip. I'll post it in the description. Tom Brady is in an interview talking about where he went to high school, is where Barry Bonds and Greg Jeffries both went to high school, apparently. So they are like local legends. So he grew up a big Greg
Nice.
Jeffries fan.
What was the last clue?
That he played with you from 95 to
Oh,
98
okay.
and was traded to the
Yeah.
Angels.
Okay. Quick update. We are in the bottom of the second. Nothing. Colorado, Arizona, one
He's
out. Nobody out.
through one hit.
So I'm hoping Carson Palmquist has this is the night he'll never forget. Carson, whatever happens tonight, God bless you, my friend. You made it to the big leagues, and tonight your major league debut in Arizona. Hope you do well, man.
Congrats, dude.
Yeah, congrats. All right, we're out. We'll see you guys.